On the digestive system. The digestive system starts up here in the mouth. And I'm sure that your grandmother or your mother or someone has told you numerous times when we were very small, chew your food 24, 48, whatever the number might be, times. What happens is the teeth begin to break down the material of the food, and you begin to pump in enzymes, specifically ptyalin, that comes from the little salivary gland right up in the corner of your mouth, up in here. Saliva is pumped into the food. Saliva's main function, the ptyalin, is to work with sugars. Now we're going to talk about some herbals in a few minutes, and one of the reasons we will use some of the herbs is to keep this body alkaline. When the body becomes too acidic, the saliva remains acidic, and this enzyme, ptyalin, cannot work in an acid condition. So if your body is acidic, your sugar metabolism is immediately out of balance, starting right in the mouth. So let's say we're chewing our food and it comes on down through the esophagus. The beginning of this movement down the esophagus is called peristalsis. Peristalsis is a wave of movement all the way through the body. And we'll talk about it a lot in our different presentations. This one has to do with our moving food down the esophagus into the stomach. The stomach kind of, the neck of it here is kind of behind the liver a little bit. The top of the stomach, the cardiac portion, because it's closest to the heart, the food enters in here, and if we were to look at the stomach from the other side, turn the body around a little bit, we'd see that the bottom was kind of closed and the top was kind of open. This is where the foods come in, up here. And it's kind of a bag, and it's a little closed here, and this is the lower part, and it's going to come out down here. So the food's entered in here, and it's gently massaged by the stomach muscles, and the enzymes that are in the food are beginning to work on it. Now, it's very important that we eat as much food raw as possible. Raw food is self-digesting. Food that we take down in here that's been cooked requires our body to produce enzymes and interject them into that area. That puts a strain on the rest of the system relative to enzymes. We use enzymes in the rest of our body for repair work, and that's their primary function, to keep the metabolic systems of the body taking place. So if we eat predominantly raw food, we don't pull enzymes out of our bank, so to speak, and raw food is self-digesting, and this process begins to happen very naturally and very actively with raw food. So let's say everything's going along just fine. What happens is this system starts to open up, and it becomes almost a full bag, like that, as the food moves with peristalsis down into the lower part of the stomach. This is called the pyloric section down in here. Pyloric because of pyloric acid, hydrochloric, betaine hydrochloric, and enzymes put hydrochloric in here. This is an alkaline area up here. This is an acidic area down here. Food moves down from the walls of the intestine about halfway down, from the walls of the stomach about halfway down. The acid starts to run down the inside and get mixed in here. Now this is not a mix master. This is a gentle massaging like you would with kneading dough or something. So all this takes place down here with an acidic environment. The stomach changes its atmosphere, so to speak. It's massaged and broken in, and the food starts to break down. It takes strong stomach acid to break down the minerals in our food. For example, getting calcium out of your food requires very strong acid in your stomach to get all of our minerals. Usually what happens in here, if this body again becomes acidic, the stomach says, I'm not going to contribute to this problem. I'm going to make less stomach acid. And that's where we run into the problems of the boiling sensation, the heartburn, the reflux. It actually happens when there's a lack of stomach acid here. The food begins to boil, and it's pushed back up into the esophagus area. So the regular approach here is to give you something that shuts off this entire system, like a TUM, or some of the medications that are used. When that happens, the whole system becomes alkaline. Yes, you lose the symptom of the burning. The only reason it's burning is because there's a little bit of acid, and there's not enough acid to finish the job. Most cases of heartburn, what you would find was that if you were to take a little apple cider vinegar, maybe a couple of tablespoons, in about that much water, a couple ounces, drink it at the end of the meal when you've got the little heartburn sensation, you'd put the fire out. You really don't want to neutralize this area. What you want to do is keep the body alkaline. The stomach will then keep itself in balance, and you'll have plenty of digestion. Tums, let's talk about that for a second. If you have heartburn and you take Tums, or they say Tums is a source of calcium. If you remember a few seconds ago, I said it takes a lot of acid to get calcium out of your food. So you put a Tum down there and you neutralize this. Acid is not working anymore. How are you going to get the calcium out of your Tum? It can't work. It's impossible. There is no logic behind the statement. It can't work. So keep your body alkaline. We'll talk about how with nutrition and herbs in just a minute. Food is prepared here. This is all a preparatory part of digestion. This is not where we take things into the body. This is just to break them down, get them ready. Then it moves with peristalsis through the duodenum and down in the common bile duct, comes in here, joins the duodenum. This is an acid situation right now. This rest of the intestinal tract is an alkaline area. We are only acid in this area and the urinary tract. The rest of it is basically alkaline. So something has to happen to make this bolus of food called chyme alkaline again so that it will not burn up your digestive tract. That function comes from the gallbladder. Right here under the liver is the gallbladder, joins into this common bile duct. It will dump sodium solution and cholesterol into this common bile duct. The liver's putting enzymes in here, comes down, and it joins in with pancreatin from the pancreas. And it dumps into this duodenal area and makes it very, very alkaline again. That's how we neutralize the acid coming out of the stomach. The digestive chyme moves on down into the small intestine. The first 6, 8, maybe 12 inches of the small intestine is where really all of the digestion takes place. Within this area, if we were to make a pipe out of it, it would have little fingers sticking down, and those little fingers would be covered with hair. And they really look like that. And they've got little hairs all over them. And this is inside of this area here. And these villi are what absorb the minerals, the vitamins, out into the bloodstream from this, the very, very beginning of the small intestine. Now, people that have this area damaged with Crohn's or colitis or something of that nature, and maybe they have it removed, the rest of the small intestine, 28 feet or so, can do some digestion. But it's not really efficient as this area, and this area deals with most of the fats. So one of the things that can damage this area, again, is the body becoming too acid, allowing unfinished digestion so that this becomes acidic, maybe a gallbladder problem, so that this area gets damaged with acid perhaps. Another thing that will damage this area is not enough friendly bacteria. That helps protect these villi. Major cause of damage in the small intestine and throughout the system from here down is a thing called gluten. That's the part of the grain of wheat that is all white. It makes bread chewy, it makes pasta flexible, it makes bagels nice and puffy and chewy. Gluten is poison. It coats this system through here with wallpaper paste. It traps bacteria up in between these villi, and it can destroy them. Crohn's and colitis, that kind of disease, is a direct relationship to the gluten. People with that particular illness should never eat gluten foods. Wheat would be the first to eliminate, rye is next in order, and oatmeal is third. Keep this wallpaper paste out of this system, and you'll maintain a healthy colon. Most of us can eat some wheat products, some oatmeal, so forth, a little gluten, if we have a lot of fiber with it. It's the fiber that keeps this wallpaper paste from clinging to the walls here. We're a nation that eats a fairly low fiber diet, not enough fruit, not enough vegetables, more fiber. We'd get away with more of the wheat products with more fiber. Keep the system moving clean through here. The pancreas, we're going to talk about it again in the hormonal system. It's a dual gland. Its exocrine system is to give us pancreatin through here for the beginning of digestion of fats, and then it also makes insulin, which goes directly into the bloodstream for sugar metabolism. I'm backing up again through the duodenum to the stomach. pyloric section is acidic, upper portion cardiac is alkaline, remembering that it doesn't all work at one time. It works from top to bottom. Alkaline first, and then it starts to work the acid part. We move on back up the esophagus. We have the ptyalin coming in from the salivary glands and the chewing. Remember a principle here. From out here all the way through this system and out is exactly the same as out here. It's outside your body. Food is an invader. It's a potential toxin. So what we're trying to do with this system is prepare the food and begin to detoxify it, make it into a form that is compatible with our body through this system, and it never really enters the body until it gets down here in the small intestine and it's absorbed minerals, proteins, so forth, from the villi of the small intestine. This system is designed to protect you from a lot of things besides food. It's also part of your immune system. Bacteria will get washed down here and destroyed in the stomach. So there's a lot of things that our digestive system does for us. It is the main way that we take the ingredients that we put in, prepare them, and put them into our body so that we can use them to keep this organism healthy and strong. Now we're going to talk about some of the herbals or nutritional supplements that would be valuable in keeping that system strong. I've listed some down here. We may come across a few more as we go along. Alfalfa is right up on top. Remember I spoke quite a bit over there about acid alkalinity. Most of the body should be 6.8 to 7 on the acid alkaline scale, 7 being neutral, 6.8 being acidic. You'll find some literature that allows 6.4, 6.6. My clinical experience has been 6.8 is the optimum acid alkalinity for the tissue based on saliva. I read this in the saliva. Keep the body alkaline so that when you begin to eat, your saliva becomes alkaline, and then remember the sugar process. That begins here in your mouth. Alfalfa is a major alkalizer of the body. It's one of the greatest herbs for that purpose. It's very high in trace minerals, and that's how it does this alkalizing of your body. It's also a bit of a digestive aid with some of the enzymes that are in it. Wonderful, wonderful herb for the digestive system. And it must be the whole grown plant, not the stalks, but about the upper 3 to 6 inches of the plant, not sprouts. Now, sprouts are an alkaline food, but they've not grown far enough to develop all the minerals. Alfalfa has been known to shoot its roots down anywhere from 60 to 120 feet. On lousy soil, alfalfa will mineralize itself and then begin to remineralize the soil. Wonderful, wonderful herb. It gets its name, Alfalfa. It's the god of herbs. Been around for centuries and people using it. Next one I have up here is bentonite clay. Bentonite clay is a form of ground deposits of plants and minerals. It takes on a certain ionic charge in that nature, and it begins to draw things to itself, not like a charcoal absorbs things, but it will, with its kind of magnetic charge, it's an ionic charge, will attract things to it. What we use it for in the digestive system is removing toxins. If you'll take a tablespoon of bentonite clay in a glass of water, drink it, it goes through the alimentary canal, picks up toxins from the system. It's a wonderful way to clean the system periodically. It helps pick up toxins out of the stomach, out of the intestinal tract, general detoxifier for the body. If you're working with bentonite clay, by the way, never touch it with metal. We normally buy it already hydrated, or you can buy it as a powder and you mix it with water. You can touch it with plastic or wood or glass. Never touch it with metal. You'll change the ionic charging of that powder. Next little group right here, this is kind of an enzyme group that I put up here. Betaine hydrochloride is a form of hydrochloric acid to enhance digestion in the stomach. It would be primarily used for protein, animal proteins especially, but it will also break down the protein out of plants. It's pretty good at breaking down plant fiber. So if someone is in an alkaline state, they may not need this. But if their tissue has become acidic, remember from the other chart that the stomach will make less acid, So then we would use betaine hydrochloride, maybe combined with some other enzymes, to help with the digestion in the stomach. Enzymes here being lipase, protease, amylase, general spectrum of alkaline enzymes that will work on fats and sugars, and protease will do some protein. Papaya I have up here because it contains a natural protein digestion, papain. You may find this combined with some mint in a digestive enzyme. It can be used as an aid for an after-dinner mint to help with digestion of food. The best way to help your digestion of your food is to eat proper amounts of food and combine them properly. We don't get into a lot of food combining in this particular class, but if you mix certain foods, for example, if you will do fruit only by itself, that will help a lot with your digestion. Never combine fruit with any other form of food. It won't mix in its enzyme action. Within the fruit thing, melons need to be taken out, and they're only by themselves. Melons should never be eaten even with a banana. I don't know how many of you have had a fruit bowl, and it's got some nice bananas and some melon and some oranges and some grapes and cherries, and you sit down and you eat the thing, oh, this really tasted good. A couple of minutes later, you're going, oh, excuse me, cantaloupe. The problem is you're not allergic to cantaloupe. The problem is that the melon mixed with the fruit, the stomach's going to work on the most difficult thing first. Leave the other alone for a few seconds. So it works on the regular fruit, but it will not work on the melon. The melon goes on down this digestive tract and actually starts to ferment. So you begin to burp melon. The sugars won't be dissolved or digested properly, and you have a lot of discomfort. You're not really allergic to it. Many people think they're allergic to cucumbers, but they put cucumbers on sandwiches, they put cucumbers in salads, they put cucumbers in all kinds of things. Cucumber is a little tiny melon, and on top of that, it's not ripe. Pickles are the same problem. They're melons, and they're also pickled, and that makes them even harder to digest. So I would suggest if you want to eat pickles, eat them by themselves. If you want to eat cucumber, eat it by itself. 15 minutes later, you can go ahead and eat something else. It takes about 15 minutes to get rid of a melon. Fruit takes about an hour. Then we get into meat and vegetables, dairy products. I usually end up with a little wheel, and on that wheel I've got meat down here, and I put vegetables in the middle, and I've got starches and dairy, fruit, and I might have melons over here. Melons are never eaten with anything else. Remember that. Fruit is never eaten with anything. You can combine meat and vegetables, and that works, but there are no three-way combinations that are totally compatible with your digestive system. So when we sit down to the meat, potatoes, vegetable thing, we have a digestive problem. We get used to it after a while, but we have incomplete digestion, improperly prepared food, and the body is dealing with essentially a toxin. You can do vegetables and starches, and that works okay. No three-way combinations. You can do dairy with a vegetable, and that's okay. You cannot go around the circle and make three-way combinations. You'll end up with digestive problems. So I would suggest that we do a little bit of work with the food combining, stay alkaline, make sure you have strong enzymes. Raw food, as I mentioned earlier, is self-digesting. The minute you start to cook food, you begin to kill all the enzymes within that food. Somewhere around 110 degrees, the enzymes begin to die. Raw food, and I don't suggest you begin eating raw meat. That's not where I'm going here. That's a really Russian roulette program. I don't do raw fish. I don't do raw meat. Cook those things if you're going to eat them. Otherwise, eat at least 75% of your vegetables raw. Let their enzymes do their own work. Don't take enzymes out of your bank. Come on down here to hydrangea. I have hydrangea here as an herb that contains magnesium, manganese. It's very high in those kind of minerals, and it is excellent for relaxing the system. It's the food of the muscles with its magnesium, and manganese have a lot to do with the digestive system in an enzyme sense. Now we go on down here to ginger. Ginger is an ancient herb relative to the digestive system. If you know much about the East Indian cooking, a lot of ginger. Ginger is very soothing to the digestive tract. It encourages the growth of friendly bacteria down in the intestine. We use ginger a lot for motion sickness. We use it for nausea during pregnancy. We use it for nausea during chemotherapy. Wonderful, wonderful herb for calming and soothing the digestive system. Chamomile, kind of in the same area, very calming to the digestive system, mildly antibiotic. In a small person, like maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 years old, sometimes chamomile is all they need to get rid of the sniffles. It can be that strong. Very soothing to the digestive system. Chamomile, by the way, is also, remember it's mildly antibiotic, a great eye wash. Fantastic for something, an eye irritation of any kind, styes, conjunctivitis, something of that nature. Make some chamomile tea, use it for eye drops, and then even take the tea bag and put it over the eye. Let it sit there as a poultice. Peppermint, been used traditionally for thousands of years as an additive to the digestion for soothing and calming the digestive system. Animals will eat peppermint for the same reason. I suppose that man saw animals doing that, and that's where the idea came from. It has a wonderful smell. The smell is kind of stimulating. But within the digestive tract, it's very calming and soothing. Peppermint is also slightly antiviral, slightly antibacterial. So it does several functions down in the system. We have slippery elm here. Slippery elm is something that I would use first in the Crohn's and colitis situation, where there's an irritation of the digestive tract, but real specifically down in the small intestine. Slippery elm is the inner bark of the elm tree, and it can be ground up into powders, and it can be made into food. It could almost be made into a dough. Has been used in the past for that. I believe it was used in Valley Forge. George Washington's men lived on slippery elm for like 4 months. That's the only thing they had to eat. In our system, it's very calming and soothing, but remember the little villi down in the digestive tract, down in the small intestine. It helps clean them, protect them, and while it's doing its soothing, it is actually nutritive. So someone who's on a very restricted diet because of an episode with an upset, they could do slippery elm. It would be calming, and they would get some nourishment from it. Slippery elm is also a bulking agent. It contains a lot of moisture, but it's also slightly lubricating. Sometimes we'll combine it with psyllium, which I don't have up here. It would be an excellent herb for fiber. I'll put that up for you. Another fiber. Psyllium holds a lot of moisture, provides excellent bulk for the intestinal tract, helps keep it clean, do a little scrubbing. Slippery elm is smoother, milder, soothing. Sometimes I'll combine them. You may find a person just on slippery elm that it's too slippery. They will not have enough push bulk left in their stool. They'll feel like there's something remaining. So you might want to combine a little psyllium with a slippery elm sometimes. But in Crohn's and colitis, I work just with slippery elm combined with a couple other herbs. Psyllium is an excellent fiber. This nation gets maybe one small piece of fiber a day when they forget to take the wrapper off of their McDonald's hamburger. We're a nation that doesn't eat enough vegetables. That's where the fiber should come from. If you or your children or the people you're working with insist on staying away from the vegetables a little bit, you want to bring in some psyllium. Help build some bulk in the system. Keep the moisture in the colon. Provide fiber to move things through. Keep the moisture in the system. Water. That word, water, probably should be on the top of this list, and it probably should be on every list that we talk about. It's the cheapest medicine we have. Water in this system. If you keep enough water throughout your body, keep it hydrated, everything works better. I'll make some comments specifically to the stomach, to the digestive tract. If you'll take water 15, 20 minutes before you sit down to eat, do it on an empty stomach. The water goes into the hydration part of your system. It doesn't just fill the stomach up. It actually thickens the lining of the stomach area, causes the mucus to be heavier, and allows your stomach to begin creating and secreting stronger enzymes. I know of many practitioners that have dealt tremendously well with an ulcer situation, where someone has said, oh, I've got this really difficult ulcer, I'm in pain most of the time, and the doctors have confirmed that it's not perforated, it's just an irritating situation. Well, if they're not doing something with some herbals to take care of that, the least they should do is drink water. Remember the thicker mucus lining of the stomach. It will begin to heal an ulcer. So water has a tremendous amount to do with our digestion. It keeps the rest of the body working well. And when it goes down into the small intestine, that must be fairly fluid. The food that's moving through the small intestine, needs a fair amount of water. The water should not be put in there in the middle of the digestive process. Put the water down first. Let the moisture that's in the food provide the water. And then about an hour after eating, you can drink more water. To drink water in the middle of the digestive process dilutes these enzymes, weakens them. So we want to put a little water in first, and you can have some after. If you're drinking food that makes you thirsty, or excuse me, if you're eating food that makes you thirsty, you're eating the wrong kind of food. Fried foods make you thirsty. Sugar makes us thirsty. Those things should be kept to a minimum. Real healthy, fresh vegetables and fruits do not make you thirsty. We've done psyllium, water, talked about slippery elm, peppermint, chamomile, ginger. Remember ginger for motion sickness and nausea. Don't forget the enzymes. Keep your enzyme potential high. Make sure that you are eating lots and lots of raw food. If you're going to eat cooked food, take an enzyme with it. I kind of make it a habit to try and take enzymes with every meal, just to keep things operating properly. Remember the bentonite clay as a detoxer through the system. By the way, bentonite clay also makes a fantastic poultice for bug bites or any poison or toxic situation outside the skin. Alfalfa, fantastic herb for keeping us alkaline. These are some of the basic herbals that we would use on the system. Okay, now that we've talked about some of the herbals, let's go back to the system and talk about some of the diseases and disorders and the things we can do and how these things happen. Let me make a little space here for us to work with. Remember that we started up in the mouth chewing food. Remember I mentioned that this is an open to the outside system, and everything that comes in here is an invader, including food. One of the things that sometimes gets through this system and sneaks up on us quite a bit is parasites. Now, parasites can happen in many, many ways, and if you get parasites, it doesn't mean you're a dirty person or anything of that nature. Yeah, we get parasites traveling into third world countries, but you can get parasites in this country eating in a restaurant. You can get parasites in this country if you're a little friendly with your pets. I know people let their birds peck at their lips, kiss them, they kiss dogs and cats. The parasites can enter our system, and if this system is not strong enough, as in weak digestion, body being too acidic, not enough acid in here because the body is trying to prevent that situation, parasites can get into the system. And they don't always stay in the small intestine. I'm talking about things beyond flukes and tapeworms. One of the places that parasites go that might affect your digestion ultimately is up into the liver. They'll get up in there and the body will try and remove them and protect you from them by encapsulating them. That's one of the first defense systems of the body. They form like gravel and sand, and it passes out of the liver and they get into the gallbladder. And in the gallbladder they begin to be coated even further with cholesterol. If you've ever had a gallbladder flush and you saved the stones, if you could slice them and look at them under a magnifying glass or microscope, you'd see inside this circular layering of crystalline material, and down in the center would be a little speck of something, quite probably a parasite. They can affect the functioning of the liver. In the gallbladder, when they get in there or when we start to form stones of any kind, they're a good thing for stones to form around. Then we have this congested gallbladder. No one has to lose their gallbladder. Generally, a function of gallbladder distress is the body becoming too acidic. The body needs sodium as a neutralizer. And I don't mean table salt. I'm talking about organic sodium from plants and vegetables, fruit, that we put into our sodium bicarbonate system. That's our first neutralizer. The gallbladder is filled with sodium, organic sodium. That's what keeps the cholesterol liquid in there. When your body is in a stressed situation, being acidic, it will start pulling that sodium out of the gallbladder. When it does that, it allows the cholesterol to begin to solidify. And if there is some gravel in there from the liver and the parasites, then these stones can form rather rapidly. Now you have a problem where the stones block the bile duct and you're in terrible, terrible pain. One way to prevent all that from happening is, first of all, stay alkaline. Another way is to avoid parasites or periodically do a parasite cleanse. I'm going to back up to alkalinity here in just a second. Remember to avoid the parasites. Periodically do a parasite cleanse. I think people in this country should do a parasite cleanse once a year. Great herbs for that are garlic, black walnut, ginger we talked about before, artemisia, wormwood. And there's a lot of others. But do a parasite cleanse maybe once a year. Once we've done that as a preventative situation, the next best thing, the most important thing actually overall, is to stay alkaline. We stay alkaline by eating a 75% vegetarian diet. Now, I know there's some wonderful books out there, diet programs, that tell you to eat so much protein or so much carbohydrate based on dimensions of your body and how much you weigh in this dimension and that. And then there's another one that tells you how much protein you should eat based on your blood type and so forth. And all of those systems have validity. They really do. And everything in there, some of it applies to everybody, and some of it doesn't apply to everybody. So I recommend you try to determine as best you can your biological response to those type of diets. But within all of them, the key is to keep this tissue alkaline. Now, you can eat a lot of protein. Some people require more than others. And that's okay, so long as they don't eat more protein than they need and then become acidic. So one of the simplest ways to find out where you are in reference to protein is to keep monitoring your saliva with a pH meter or pH papers and find out if what you're eating is keeping you alkaline. If you want to eat more protein, that's fine. See if it's keeping you alkaline. Push your protein levels only to the point where you'll stay alkaline most of the time. We found that to be the best way to keep this system operating at its optimum. When you get into that acidic state, you can begin to weaken all of this system. You begin to weaken your immune system. You become very potential for gallstones. You get very weak digestion going on ultimately. So this system should operate in an alkaline state, and that's by being 75% vegetarian. Now, within that word vegetarian, I mean fruit and vegetables. I'm excluding grain. The grains sit over on the other side of the chart where the acid would be, and they fit in there with meat and dairy and nuts. Grain is acidifying. That's why many vegetarians, when they first try to become vegetarian, they run into some health problems. They don't understand it. They think they're doing everything correctly. And the problem is that they've become acidic, and the systems start to break down. So stay alkaline. Remember we talked about alfalfa. That's a good emergency way to boost your alkalinity. The best way is to eat the fruit and vegetables. So the gallbladder, keep it alkaline. You should never have a problem with it. If you do get stones, there's ways to dissolve them. We talked about hydrangea a little earlier. Hydrangea is their major reason is it will dissolve stones. The stones are cholesterol, maybe a little calcium, but mostly cholesterol and magnesium and manganese from the hydrangea will help dissolve them. Marshmallow is another excellent herb for dissolving stones in that system. Marshmallow is very soothing to this entire system, but it's real specific to getting stones out of your gallbladder. There's a simple liver tune-up Not a perfect liver cleanse, but a simple liver tune-up. And it also works a little bit on the gallbladder. And that would be to take a tablespoon of olive oil and squeeze into it the juice of a quarter of a lemon, and you take that on an empty stomach morning and evening. And that is a nice, gentle liver gallbladder cleanser. It's a wonderful treatment for that system. So you might consider that if there's any doubt in your mind that the system's not working perfectly. Back here into the stomach, we mentioned parasites. We didn't talk about parasites in the stomach very much. There was a very courageous doctor who several years ago tried to convince the standard medical people that ulcers were caused by bacteria, in a sense parasites, but bacteria in the stomach. He was practically thrown out of the medical profession until he proved it by infesting himself. What happens is down here in the stomach lining, the bacteria bury little holes down into the stomach lining, and they irritate it, and the mucus won't form back over it, so the acid comes along and starts to irritate that tissue, and you have an ulcer. So then you do the standard treatment, and you seem to have gotten rid of your ulcers, and then they come back. One of the things we have to do is do a bacterial treatment of this area, and there's some excellent herbs for that. One of them is garlic, and another excellent one is licorice. Licorice was used years and years and years ago to work on ulcers. The glyceric acid is an antibacterial product, and it will work on this system to help keep it strong, help keep it healthy, and keep you from getting bacteria in there that will penetrate the lining of that stomach. We move on down through the system, and I mentioned friendly bacteria. Within the small intestine, if you will keep the friendly bacteria healthy, as in eating perhaps homemade yogurt, not the highly sugared yogurt you might get in a grocery store. Ginger, mentioned that a little while ago. That helps keep the friendly bacteria strong in there. The use of antibiotics, the use of steroids, will kill the friendly bacteria in this system. Even the medical literature recognizes the fact that the continued use of steroids, for example, in Crohn's, has a debilitating effect on the rest of the body and actually weakening this system ultimately. So they don't even use steroids for extended periods of time. The bacteria will kill the friendly bacteria and open you up to further infections. I mentioned garlic just a second ago. Wonderful, wonderful antibacterial, good cold pill. If more of us ate garlic, it'd be more friendly to everybody else. But take the friendly bacteria, the acidophilus and the bifidus, and keep that system strong. Keep everything in balance through this system. The pancreas, in this function, its main purpose is the pancreatin for digestion. Normally related to digestion directly, there's not a lot of problems with the pancreas, but you can get an infection or pancreatitis. The biggest thing we find out, problems with the pancreas, are related to the insulin system, and we're not going to do that till we get to hormones. The pancreas generally doesn't give us a lot of problems. It's not too common to have any inflammation or problems with the pancreas. Keeping this whole system alkaline, I can't stress that enough. I keep coming back to it. It's one of the first things we learn in the natural health field when we start to study for this. The system must be kept alkaline. From the bottom to the top, from the saliva to the quality of the digestion and even into elimination, everything works better when this system is alkaline. So I can't encourage you enough to become a 75% vegetarian. Drink plenty of water, keep the system hydrated, eat your food 75% raw, not including the meats, and everything in this system will work 100% better, and you'll need a whole lot less support with those herbals and supplements that we talked about. So this information that we've shared with you today, if you'll take it home and share it with other people, you'll be able to extend the quality of their life, you'll be able to help them with their digestion, their general health, their well-being. And we ask you to do that. Share it, study it, and give it to other people. The gift of health is one of the best things you can do for people. At the beginning of this presentation, you saw a disclaimer. And we appreciate it if you would understand that this information is just for educational purposes only. It is never meant to take the place of medical treatment or diagnosis. Please keep that in mind as you share it with people. And we do appreciate your sharing this information with people, because the greatest gift you can give to someone is their health and their well-being and understanding of themselves. We hope you'll do that.